Hi, everyone. We're just a day away from Halloween, and so I did look at where the energy is going to be like tomorrow. And so, Sun in Scorpio, Moon in Pisces. Um, yeah, the ghosts really could be walking the earth tomorrow. So, anyway, so welcome to another
Sounds very
episode.
circusy.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I feel like Scorpio Pisces is like a dark circus.
Oh, I never thought about that. But then you're much more invested in circus than,
Well, I have a Pisces moon, so
well, there you go. Well, you're invested in anything that looks like a costume.
that's true. I'm
And
wearing
you
a costume right now.
Huh?
I'm wearing a
What?
costume right now.
Really?
Yeah, I'm wearing a
Just kidding.
Scorpio.
Um, well, yeah. Uh, yeah, I honestly didn't always like Halloween very much because, of course, when I was growing up, you made your own costumes, and it always seemed like such a stressor to get a costume together. And then when I was in grade 7 and there was a Halloween dance at school, I made this costume, not really understanding how provocative it might be.
Wow.
So, so it was a bikini, but a really conservative one, a two-piece bathing suit, not a bikini. And so I went as a harem dancer.
Wow. I would
I
like to
don't
see
think I don't think I knew what I was doing.
that.
Um, and so, uh, as we get started, that anecdote can tell you a lot about what your Pluto can get you into when you're not really thinking about what it means. So anyway, so Andy and I are going to talk a little bit about how to nourish Mars and Scorpio and Pluto because Mars and Pluto are both um, strongly connected. Is probably the best way to put it to the sign of Scorpio, and they each have their um, preferences in terms of how they like to be nourished. And part of this is about, you know, sometimes when a planet really kind of comes along and takes you by surprise, it's a good idea to know how to essentially take care of them so that you can use their energy in the healthiest, most effective way. So, Andy, you want to weigh in on one of the three, whichever one speaks to you?
So we're talking about how to nourish Scorpio, Mars, or Pluto.
Yeah.
Interesting question. Okay. Well, I think if we look at, Mars and Pluto are kind of at home in Scorpio. So it's all kind of a similar vibe. There's like an aggressive, obsessive vibe to Mars, Pluto, and Scorpio. And so I feel like one of the ways we can nourish an energy is by giving it what it is suited for. So if we say that, when Mars is in Scorpio like it is right now, that we can get obsessed about things. We can get kind of aggressive about certain things. And in doing so, we would kind of nourish our ability to channel the Mars and Scorpio energy. Pluto was really, I think, best suited for beautiful obsessions, right? Like obsessions if you get obsessed with crochet animals for 2 years, like all of a sudden you have a farm of crochet animals around you. And so I feel like that would be a beautiful example of an obsession. So I do think fixating and going really deep with things is very Scorpio, very Pluto, and then Mars is kind of aggressive in that situation.
Well, yeah, it's funny because, well, one of the things I always want to say is, so if you find yourself really being obsessed about something, one of the ways you can nourish that whole process is to ask yourself, what about it? Is it something that helps you express passion or your creativity in some way that feeds your soul or feeds your, so um, like even binge watching is of something is an example of Scorpio Pluto energy and Mars too. But Mars Mars is always interesting in terms of its connection to Scorpio because it has a strong connection, but it's not always a comfortable connection. It's like so in a way for them, sort of removing obstacles from their path, like um, and you know, and for me, Mars is connected to anger and Pluto's connected to rage.
Mm,
So the best way to nourish those things, if you're finding yourself challenged by those things, is to really acknowledge whatever it is being said to you,
mm, mm-hmm,
so that you can find a positive expression about that. Because, you know, I've always had difficulty being angry with people,
mm,
and and given my chart, you know, I can be verbally very intense.
mm,
And I learned when I was very young that it really mattered what I said.
mm-hmm,
So, and of course, because Mercury is currently mixed up in all this. So, how to nourish when you want to say something, how to express yourself, because Mercury isn't just all about talking. It's also about any form of expression of yourself.
mm-hmm,
And so together, you can make some beautiful things. You
mm-hmm,
can create a beautiful, like a hidey hole for yourself, a sanctuary, because Pluto likes to have a place it can hide out. And there's really nothing wrong with hiding out. That's a good thing to do if your circuits are on overload. But if you choose to hide out all the time and don't want to engage anybody with anybody, that's a less healthy expression of that energy, because there is a difference between privacy and avoidance, right?
interesting. The Mars and Scorpio can be kind of intense. You know, people always think having a planet at home is a good thing, but what the ancients would say is that having a planet at home makes that planet be able to produce what it promises. And if Mars promises brutality in some ways, I think Mars and Scorpio can be kind of, mean. And so I think we have to kind of nourish the higher expressions of Mars and Scorpio as having the bravery to stand up for certain things, or the what can we use intense aggressiveness for, that's maybe activism, or there's all these like protests right now and things like that. So I think using Mars and Scorpio for its best, for what it can do best, but knowing that it is kind of fierce is a thing.
Well, yeah, the combination of Mars, Scorpio, and if you throw in and say you have really strong Pluto in your chart too, that you could take over the world even when you weren't intending to. Uh, so, and the other part of that whole thing is the invitation to excavate, right? Uh, I had an astrologer friend once say, you know, it's really like uh, emotional archaeology, you know, digging, and you know, we live in a time now where we talk about not just our own challenges but intergenerational challenges. And of course, you know, your circuits can get really overloaded. And the other thing that Scorpio can be really good at is cutting away or cutting out the things that don't actually matter, because you can expand things so far that you lose sight of what it was that originally spoke to you. And then you can find yourself running in a direction at 90 miles an hour, you know, really looking to hit a wall going 90 miles an hour. And I don't
Mm,
mean that figuratively, but or literally, by the way. I mean
mm,
that figuratively.
mhm,
So, and of course, you know, because of the Mars aspect of it, it can really think that revenge is a good idea. And then coupled with that Pluto energy, you can, not understanding that the only person, and I'm going to swear now, so I really hope no one is offended, you can end up fucking yourself in the left ear and not anybody else.
Whoa, I've never heard that phrase. I'm taking that for the next time Mars is in Scorpio.
Anything with it that you want. Other than if you don't use it well, don't say you learned it from me. I'm just kidding. Um, yeah, this is a pretty intense time. Now, fortunately for us, when Halloween is tomorrow, Mercury has moved into Sagittarius, so things should be a little bit more lighthearted. And it could, you know, there could be some really great Halloween parties tomorrow.
Mm.
And with Venus and Libra, that was one way to nourish your Venus and Libra.
Oh
If it
yeah.
would like some time, please.
Yeah, party year. It's a party year.
So Andy and I are now gonna have a little bit of a talk about what's in the bowl next week.
If I had my soup props, I would get them out right now. They're coming in the mail right now.
We're going
I've
to
been
have
asking some
props. Like
broccoli
we
and
are going to have props. I promise.
I'm putting things in the soup right now.
Well, and she's bringing in those kind of props, and I have a collection of teddy bears. You just never know when they're going to show up. I have to first consult with them though to find out what sign they are.
You have to
Um,
make them sign a contract.
make my teddy bears sign a contract?
Yeah, make sure that they're okay being on camera.
I never thought, well, I'm sure some of them won't want to be.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and if you think I'm joking about the teddy bears, I'm not.
Prove it.
I'm still trying to make up for the fact that my parents made me give my teddy bear to my sister when I was 4 years old. So,
Uh,
just bear with me if you, and I mean, I didn't mean that pun, but I'll take it anyway. So, um, I don't know. Am I talking about what's up in the bowl by myself? I think I am.
okay. I thought we were gonna share that one, but
Oh
it's your
no,
show,
I
honestly.
can't remember what we decided 10 minutes ago, so that's okay. So I am going to include Andy in it, partly because Andy and I approach astrology from slightly different perspectives. And so she has information that she can share. Plus, she's smart as a whip. So, although I never understood that expression, smart as a whip. But anyway, so, okay, what are we looking at here? So, as I said, Mars is has just moved into Sagittarius. Yes, it was Mercury that already. Mars is about to go into Sagittarius, and of course, I didn't write down the date, but I don't think it's until early November. So it's going to join Mercury very shortly, and so that's also going to ease some of that Scorpio energy and make things. I know I wrote it down somewhere. I just don't remember where.
November 5th.
November the 5th. So, of course, this podcast takes into account everything from today up to November the 7th, when we will be doing episode 3 of Astro Soup. And so I like to keep, a little bit more contained so we can digest things as we go along, as opposed to being overwhelmed in the first episode of every sign going this and this and this and this, because it's a very active Scorpio cycle this time around. So, as we begin this segment of Scorpio, things start to really heat up. And it begins with that Mars going into Sagittarius, and Venus is going to go into Scorpio. And so then we'll have another planet back in Scorpio. So, let's talk about the Mars and Sag first. What do you think about the Mars and Sag?
Well, I think it goes from that kind of intense, fierce, kind of more resentments and aggression kind of Mars and Scorpio into a more playful Mars and Sag is not real pathological. It's it heats up the muscles of the legs and the nervous system, and people just get kind of athletic, or they want to walk around, or go, see the fall leaves kind of thing. So I do think it's a little bit less aggressive and resentful than Mars is Scorpio, so I think it will lighten the air. It will change the bowl of soup to be a little brighter. It's more of a yellow tones kind of Mars, and it's gonna turn it more into a curry than a deep swampy
Yeah.
bowl of coffee soup. All right.
Your facial expression kind of said it all right there. Anyway, um, so Mars and Sag, of course, Mars is always really happy in a fire sign, always happy in a fire sign. Um, and so it's looking for an adventure, and it's looking to let off some steam after all the period of Scorpio, because Mars by nature is not really intense. It's focused on what it wants, but all that Scorpio intensity tends to make it a little bit tired. So when it gets to Sagittarius, it's like freedom. Because I always say there are 3 signs in the zodiac for whom freedom is a way of life, not a preference, it's a way of life. Aries, Aquarius, and Sagittarius. So when it gets into a sign that it feels is all about freedom, it's really happy. However, the challenge, it depending on what it carries out of Scorpio with it, it can go into a somewhat self-righteous place where I know all the answers if you would just listen to me. So it's important during that period of time, you're going to find wonderful ways to express your Mars and Sagittarius as it wanders through whatever part of your chart it's wandering through. It really is just looking for space. It needs to like do this, break free. So when it gets there, there's going to be a lightening of the Scorpio mood and a less feeling of being because when you start to do any kind of emotional excavation, it's going to feel there's that intensity, and Mars just wants to bring things back to a place where things are more doable, if that makes any sense.
Mhm.
So, and then Venus moves into Scorpio. I think, good Lord, why didn't I write down those dates?
I can look it up.
Well, I wrote it down and it was right. Oh, it moves in on November the 6th. So a couple days later, so we have like a little space where Mars is in Sagittarius and Venus is still in Libra. So if you're planning a party, that was a good time to plan a party.
That one day.
Well, and so when Venus moves into Scorpio, what does that mean to you, or how do you feel about that?
Well, I think Venus, is kind of what we find beautiful at any given moment in the collective psyche. And so Venus in Libra is going to be finding, and it's at home there. So it's like finding one-on-one connection, beautiful collaboration, things like that. And like you mentioned, it's a good time for a party. I think when Venus moves into Scorpio, we get more of a love of the kind of the haunted and the horrifying. I got my like Venus and Scorpio earrings on with these skulls on here, but like I do think it's like looking beautiful in a kind of goth aesthetic would be very Venus and Scorpio. It would add some darkness to the soup again, because the Mars leaves Scorpio and then all of a sudden Venus enters Scorpio. So it's like darkness leaves and darkness comes back in. So we're gonna keep with the Scorpio vibe.
Intensity.
It's gonna be
Yeah.
it's gonna be more a lightness a version of Scorpio, more like the lighter side of it of just like horror fashion, goth fashion, as opposed to like goth anger.
So I think you're dressed like Venus and Scorpio, and I'm dressed like Venus and Libra.
Yes.
Nice, nice little iridescent earrings
Yeah. I'm
and
all
pink
skulls. Yeah.
and purple. So, so for me, I always say about people who have Venus and Scorpio, and this is generally true of when Venus is in Scorpio. Um, you're either going to like people or you're not. There is no halfway. Um, so it's a time though when you're because Venus Scorpio does like to wave at you and say, so if you think you don't have any darkness in you, that you don't have any intensity, that you don't have, because you know, in all of those things, there's strength. And of course, the sign of Scorpio is very much connected to childbirth, right?
Wow.
If there isn't a transfer that, it's a fifth house, eighth house experience, but so the actual giving birth part is very scorpionic because not only is there light, but being born is a somewhat traumatic experience because you leave this nice comfortable home and you go out into the world, and to some degree Venus moving from Libra to Scorpio can be a bit like that, except kind of in reverse. It's like I'm out in the world, but now I don't know if I like anybody. So if during the Venus and Scorpio time you feel like not talking to anybody, and it's a good time to be with yourself, actually, to find the joy within yourself. Because one of the biggest challenges that Libra faces is realizing that the most important relationship they have is the one they have with themselves.
Snaps on that.
And so that's Venus moving into Scorpio, um, might be slightly irritating to Mars because one of the things I noticed is that Mars is moving forward, and in a sense, Venus is bringing up the rear. And one of the things that popped into my head is, oh my God, Venus is going to go into Scorpio and try to fix something that Mars created while it was in Scorpio. I don't know if that's true. I'm just spitballing here, which is one of the things I love. This is how you actually learn to work with energy, is by not putting yourself in a box. And actually, Scorpio, once you get past any reluctancy you have, really wants you to see that the world is much more complex, that you are much more complex. So that Venus and Scorpio time is you can make friends with your complexity
Hmm.
and stop thinking of it as complicated, because complicated is different than complex. And I think sometimes we end up creating a lot of complications because we don't want to accept that things are not simple and they're
Hmm.
not straightforward. And if anything, Scorpio tells us is that's simply not true. Things are just not all. And it's funny because I keep on wanting to. Yeah, I had a thought and now it went away.
And I keep
Um,
thinking, don't spit in the soup.
Venus and Scorpio don't spit in the soup.
Well, you said you were spitballing, and all I could imagine is you spitting in the soup.
Well, that's not what spitballing means, is it? Spitting in the soup.
All right, just checking.
Besides, I have too much Libra energy. I would never do that.
No, no. I would pour coffee in the soup.
Do you not like coffee?
I drink 10 coffees a day. Here's my
Oh,
black and
gee.
white coffee.
Yeah, well, I don't like coffee, so.
Oh, dear.
Um, yeah, so that, it's been just that we kind of started talking about what it feels like with to have Mars blazing a trail and Venus trying to settle things down.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that. And just to make everybody so very happy, Mercury's about to go retrograde.
Oh, dun dun dun.
So now this will make everybody quake in their boots. Although I have to tell you that Mercury retrograde in August is probably the worst one I've ever lived through.
I'm gonna sign 100 contracts a day, an hour.
Don't think you can sign hundreds in an hour. Well, if you can, let me know. We should mark that with a special holiday or something.
Yeah, I just like to re-sign him after Mercury goes direct.
Well, I think that, for instance, there are a lot of caveats to that. And, there are people who, and I suppose in a way it's really great because it made people more interested in astrology, for starters. I mean, heck, you hear the lines in sitcoms and TV shows where, oh my God, Mercury retrograde. I'm thinking, wow, we're making progress. Could we get them past Mercury retrograde?
Compassionate Mars syndrome, which is called PMS, but sorry, I digress.
That's a kind of syndrome some people would like. Hey, we never talked about Mars and Scorpio and Saxo.
Oh,
And let's say we did, and let's say we did. We mentioned it, now we're moving on.
yeah. Don't tell my mom. Okay.
Don't tell your mom
That we
should
did.
never say that to someone who used to be a journalist, because it's like, what does that mean?
Okay, let's talk about the Mercury retrograde. What's the sign?
Well, it goes retrograde in early Sagittarius.
Mm,
So Mercury and Mars are going to cozy up again.
dang.
And but that's more likely to lead to philosophical arguments as opposed to Mercury conjunct Mars in Scorpio, which is I'm gonna strip you bare and say all the most embarrassing things.
There was a lot of sore throats too. A lot of people got sick with that Mercury Mars.
Yeah, really? Oh, well, that's
But I
interesting.
can see where you're saying like a Mercury Mars is a similar energy, but in the sign of Sag, it's going to be much more uplifting and kind of debatey than fierce tongue kind of thing.
Well, Mars has always got a level of fierceness. It just depends on what it's about. And when it decides it's right, and there's not much point in having a discussion. Um, the key is to keep it on the light side and to be respectful. That to remember that not everybody thinks the same way, and they don't have to. Because Sag is not really interested in conformity at
Mhm.
all. And yet it's funny because um it like fire signs like to be right. They like to be right for different reasons. So, but it's a nice balance to the Scorpio energy. It brings a little lightening of the load because a lot of water can be well, it's like a tsunami. Like 7 plants in water is a lot. And we're
Mm.
living with that while we're talking.
Wow. Can you believe when
Because
we
the
can't even
moon is still in Scorpio until later tonight, and then it moves into Sag. So tomorrow people should. Oh, I'm recording on a day, and this is not going to be posted for a week. So let's be clear about that.
Yeah, that's true. Don't confuse it.
I apparently I wasn't living in the Aquarian energy of tomorrow. I was in the Saturn energy of today.
So
Um,
anyway, the Mercury Mars are going to be conjunct for a while at the beginning of November, it sounds like.
well, well, Mercury goes retrograde, and they conjunct when after Mercury goes retrograde.
Okay.
So Mercury will all so that we should say that, or I should say that that will modify that energy.
Okay.
It'll be an opportunity to revisit any thoughts, ideas you have about what matters to you. Um, because Mercury retrograde is always about recalibrating things, anyways. Like, for instance, I'm just talking about signing contracts. If you're renewing a contract with someone, Mercury retrograde doesn't have it. And, even if Mercury's retrograde and it's really like you might have Mercury retrograde in your chart, like there are so many reasons why we cannot make blanket statements about Mercury retrograde. At least we astrologers try really hard not to.
Mm.
Um, so, and it's going retrograde in a fire sign. So it's and then it will go direct towards the end of the month when the sun has moved into Sagittarius in Scorpio because it backs up into Scorpio.
So it's stations at 6 Sagittarius. So if people have stuff at 6 Sag or any six of the fire signs or things like that, they should watch for that Mercury
Or we
and
could say early degrees for those people who um, don't know any astrology, but there are so many programs on the internet now that are free that you can put in your birth information and it will give you a chart and it'll even show you what the symbols are and what they mean and everything. So if anybody happens to be watching this podcast that doesn't know that, just so that you don't feel like we belong to a secret club and we're not going to tell you what it really means. Because I really believe that astrology is such a powerful language and should be shared in some way, shape, or form. Anybody who's interested in it. However, I'm not going to be really Sagittarian and preach that everybody should study astrology or that everybody should know astrology because it doesn't speak to everybody. I can't say that I didn't wish that it did because I did because I do. Not I did, not the past tense. I do. Because I can't, I said this to someone just the other day. I don't know where my life would be if I hadn't studied astrology. Because of course I don't. I really know how much it has assisted me in doing just being. Sometimes we don't think that that's so important. We really think that what we're doing is more important than what we're being,
Yeah.
which is something you might think about while Mercury's retrograde in Sagittarius, especially since Mars is there too.
Nice.
Um, okay. So did you like I don't like to make, I think it's more important. Like the other thing about Sag energy is it does have a certain intuition to it.
Mhm.
Like I'm my first spiritual teacher said everybody has some intuitive ability. It's just that some people's is like a toaster and other people's is like a megawatt tower. And
Yeah.
so it's always important to start listening. And when there you've got planets and fire signs, strangely enough, that's a time when you're more likely to get anxious. So I have to learn how to turn those notifications off.
Oh, you're so popular.
I don't know. Anyway, no comment. My sun in Libra with Leo rising. My sun in the seventh, I mean, in Aquarius. It doesn't know how it feels about popularity, but sun in the seventh, Leo rising. I'd like to be popular.
You're popular in my eyes.
Well, and that's more important. Anyway, let's not talk about my adolescent self anymore. Let's move on.
Okay. Are we going to do an oracle card?
Yes, we are. So, like every week, I like to do the color oracle cards,
I love
and
the oracle cards.
here we are again with cards that the size of Mount Everest, and I'm trying to shuffle. I think that's the one that wants to come out. Oh, that's interesting. Jade, take action.
Gee,
And
okay.
it's interesting because we've just trying to think. We've just passed the first quarter.
What's the first quarter of the sun moon square?
Yeah. Sorry, this is the lunar rhythms part. So it actually really connects to what I was going to talk about next, which was
Okay.
the first quarter. But it's
That Jade card makes me think of Mars and Sag and hiking through the wilderness, through the
yes,
forest there.
well, which is something that you could definitely do if you're called to do it. Um, it depends on where it is in your chart. I don't think it'll be calling me to do this because until it gets into my fifth house. And then,
What is the sorry, what does the mineral or the mineral jade do? What do we know anything about that?
so, I'm just for goodness sakes. Uh, well, it depends on your culture. For some people, it's abundant.
Hmm,
Uh, it can also be about receiving love, interestingly enough. So the rose quartz is about giving love, and jade is about receiving love.
interesting. Yeah, many people say the heart chakra is green. I don't know if that's true.
Well, I often feel that's a color that's connected to it, but we also associate pink. I really, sometimes I'm so Aquarian. It's like, uh, if say you went to a rock and gem shop and you set the intent that you wanted to find a stone that was good for your heart chakra, well, it could be anything. See, when it comes to the heart chakra, I like pink tourmaline,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I also like, oh geez, here we go again. I
The
can't remember the
forgetting
greens.
song, or you forget your point.
No, I was trying to remember the name of the greens. Malachite.
Malachite. Okay.
I like malachite a lot. Um, so yeah, it's one of these days I'd like to have somebody on to talk about gems and crystals. So, if there's anybody out there for whom this is an area of study or expertise or passion or whatever, please email me at astrosoup8@gmail.com because I would love to have someone come on and talk about those things because I love stones myself, but like I have stones, I don't remember what they are anymore because I didn't put labels on them.
Nice.
Um, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about lunar rhythms because we're really looking at first quarter to full. So first quarter is when you initiate, and interestingly enough, and we just passed the first quarter. That was yesterday. So, and of course, that lasts for about 2 to 3 days. And so this is a time of taking action and setting out to achieve something that's important to you. It kind of always reminds me of Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams when he said, "I will build it, they will come." That's not the exact quote, but it's what I remember. So it's a lot like that. It's like you are motivated from within to do something. And because it's in Aquarius, you might set off in a direction that you didn't intend to. Because Aquarius tends to do that. Go in a direction, take you in a direction you didn't intend to, and especially since now when I do the podcast and the live one on November the 7th, we're going to be talking about the next few that's the third installment, the third week of Scorpio has a lot of activity in it. So we're kind of building towards a peak in the third week, and then it kind of drops off into the fourth week before we move into Sagittarius. So remember that you're going to be dealing with the Aquarius energy, and then things are going to move into Pisces, and so don't be surprised when the moon moves into Pisces that there will be some hesitation. There will be some, am I really following my dream? Is this, because Pisces is all about the world of all possibilities, and so it can be really disconcerting to the Aquarius energy to think, well, I really know what I'm doing because it's a fixed sign and I made a decision, and now what the heck is going on? Moving towards a full moon in Taurus, which means we've got to move through the signs of Pisces and Aries, and so there's a lot of movement from the first quarter to the full moon. And it's very interesting because we'll be in the gibbous phase partway through a little bit of Pisces and no, just Aries. So Aries is not used to adapting. So the best way to describe that energy is feeling like you've made a firm decision, followed by a period of a lot of different ideas or feelings flooding your consciousness. Now, if you don't get too excited and you just allow that stuff to happen, it could be it could lead you to a different kind of breakthrough. It doesn't mean abandoning what you're planning to do. It just means being open to recalibrating so that when you get into the gibbous phase, then you're really ready to take the action that's required to fine tune it a little bit more. So, and now I'm going to talk about pitfalls and potential problems. And
Scary.
so, huh?
Scary.
Well, it's not going to be scary because we're going to get to remediation, and then you're going to talk about how to deal with those pitfalls and potential problems. Because, and I don't really like to call it that, but it's alliterative. I'm going to have to come up with a different way to phrase it because I like the word challenges, because life is always going to have challenges in it. And every cycle, some cycles bring very little challenge and others bring a number. So this one, again, we're back to that large emphasis in water signs and not feeling anchored and feeling overwhelmed. And it may not even be anything specific to you, because this year has been so wild in some ways. It's hard at this point in time especially since, we're so plugged in all the time, not to be affected. In fact, the basic building tool of computers is crystals. So whether we realize it or not, as soon as we get on our laptop, we're already shifting our energy into a frequency that is not necessarily third dimensional. Right, Andy?
I'm looking up a remedy right now.
She's looking up a remedy. So Um, all that water, unfortunately, it will ease off, but we're going to get inundated to start out with. And so Andy's going to talk about what we can do about that. And then again, there's a lot of call to do some major healing work, to dig really deep into your own consciousness, and not to judge whatever surfaces. It's neither good nor bad.
Do you want me to
Well,
talk about the remedy for all that water?
sure, you do that, and then I'll figure out how to recalibrate what I just said.
Okay. Well, no, I do think what I pulled out was Judith Hill's book on medical astrology, which you can't see the cover because I've used it so much that it doesn't have a cover, but she has this great section on what to do about excess of elements. And so
Oh,
I was
cool.
just thought we could look in here. She says, here are some of the pitfalls of a water excess: water retention, bloat, fermentations, yeast, sluggishness, drowsiness, indulgence, dependent and addictive behaviors, swelling, pain, sensitive.
You know,
Um,
I'm so glad you said that. I have been so sleepy, like
yes.
seriously, like
Yeah.
sleepy. And I, of course, for some reason, I did not associate that with water, and I don't know why. But so, what's the remediation?
That's so interesting. I've been very sleepy too. So she says antidote for water excess is fire, which we got to be careful with because this is Scorpio water excess, which is fire water, you know. But she says purgative sweats, promoting urination. These are all kind of medical. Hot spices, exercise, dry heat, sunlight, laughter, stimulation, affection, avoid cold, wet, and sweet foods like ice cream and watermelon, improve heart action and circulation. Okay, so those are kind of the physical side of things, but I mean, I would say one of the things we do in a remediation when we have an excess of something is we look to the opposite. So it's like with all this Scorpio, we got martial water, so we look to the opposite of Taurus, which is Venus Earth, right? So it's like we could say that Venusian remedies will be helpful for all the Scorpio right now. So it's like it could be Venus herbs, it could be Venus colors, it could be Venus tones or sounds. I mean, anything that's kind of peaceful and, like a sound of a bubbling brook is very Venus and Taurus, right? Like just nature sounds or, something where we go into the more peaceful realm would take us out of this intensity. If we're having in resentments and emotional things and things like that, we could go into go ahead.
I was going to say, what about baking or cooking?
Oh yeah, that's so Taurus. Yeah, like yeah, doing these like very Taurus things. And I think, yeah, being in nature, looking at woody, earthy tones, looking at things in like a sepia tone, kind of calm, facade in some ways will help you with the
No,
intensity.
I think it links back to what we're talking about, and when Mars goes into Sagittarius, because she's talking about fire. So going for a hike in the woods,
Yeah,
action, earth. That
yeah.
would be a really great remediation when you feel like your circuits are overloaded.
Oh,
Plus,
totally.
Venus is going to go into Scorpio. And so, um, it popped up. One of the best ways to not feel overwhelmed by all that water is to tell the truth.
Oh, interesting.
Because I think that, yeah, Scorpio is really interested in essential truth, what I call essential truth. That's what it's always seeking to find. Because
Hmm.
if there was anybody that doesn't like liars, it's Scorpios. But that doesn't mean they don't do it themselves. I just mean that. And no disrespect to any Scorpio that happens to be watching this. Um, they're very uncomfortable. They like to know what's what.
Well, I was reading in a book on trauma yesterday that if you don't release the trauma by telling the truth about it, like it weighs down on your psyche. And I think that's the
Yes.
exactly what you're talking about is too much water can be too much emotionalism and we have to like get it out with truth telling. And I think I absolutely agree with you on that.
Well, and being vulnerable,
Hmm.
and always trying to protect yourself because who are you protecting yourself from? Yourself,
Hmm.
right?
Interesting.
Well, so I think we need to move on unless you have any other remediation things. Oh, we yeah, we were talking about the healing of the sun and that yod with Neptune, Uranus, and square Pluto.
Hmm. Oh yeah,
That constant feeling that you're not, again, another sense that you're not anchored anywhere. that
Mm.
there's a constant need to adjust, adjust, adjust. And so this is not going to be a walk in the park. I don't know why I said that because it has its benefits. There are gifts in everything, as there usually are. It's really hard. I always say to people, there's a treasure in every experience that you've ever had, if you have, if you're capable of seeing it. Because
Yeah.
apparently only good things come from good things,
Mhm.
and only bad things come from bad things. And that's why, it's good to let go of the good bad paradigm. I don't mean abandoning any sense of morality that you have, because whatever you value and whatever you think is moral is absolutely appropriate. It's just that we overuse certain things, and it starts, when we're little kids.
Yeah, I feel like the Sun in Scorpio square Pluto in Aquarius situation there is like it would be like telling your truth but having to integrate it with the larger global sphere of like you can't just tell your truth. Oh, I feel this way. You have to be kind of political about telling your truth, and that would be the Pluto square. So, walking that tightrope kind of accurately and sitting through the tension as you kind of, you know, purposefully tell your truth in a kind of political way would be very Sun square Pluto.
I would phrase it slightly differently. I would say that, to be able to process your truth. In other words, if you're in the middle of all that stuff, that is not necessarily the time to you can tell yourself the truth. However, you need to get to that place past because when you find the things you don't like, you're either going to try to avoid them, you're going to try to make them look different, you're going to be hurt by them. There's all those things that is not the time to communicate your truth, because
Interesting.
you haven't processed it yourself. So when you get to the place that Sun square Pluto, it is a case of I choose to tell this when I can be objective and detached about it. In
Mm.
other words, I'm telling, it doesn't mean it lacks emotion. People always think that detachment lacks emotion. No, it just, because I've experienced it myself based on my temperament, that you're just taking, in essence, you're taking the Scorpio sting out of it. In other words, you're not telling it in order to hurt someone. You're telling it in order to be truthful about who you are
Mm.
and what you've experienced.
Mm. Beautiful.
So, okay, well, in that vein, we are at wrap it up, and this week, I had to go searching for a quote today because this one was found by me, not contributed by anybody else. Um, I love it. It's funny. All you need is love, but a little bit of chocolate now and then doesn't hurt. Charles M. Schultz, the guy who created Peanuts.
Oh, I love that quote.
So, and it kind of, yeah, we could get off on another tangent because I'm good at that. And I think you are too. Aren't you good at that too?
Sure, I had fun in this episode.
So I want to thank Andy for allowing me to torture her and for sharing her wisdom and her insights. And so until the next time, be true to yourself.